and welcome to Soulful. All right. Hello again, and welcome to Soulful. My name is Drew, and it's good to be back after a brief 1-week hiatus for the holiday. And yeah, actually the the reason why I decided to take a week off is very much in alignment with the topic for this episode, as we're going to share a little bit about people-pleasing and self-abandonment and a couple other concepts. Yeah, and I found myself wanting to people-please the audience here. And yeah, there was a lot of pressure to release an episode for last week, when really all I wanted to do was hang out with my family and my niece and nephews before they went back to school. And so it was funny when I realized, like, wait, hold on, this is a different form of people pleasing. So I gave myself permission to take the week off, which then allowed me to just hang out, all day Saturday, all day Sunday, with the Nuggets, playing in the pool, and not have the looming pressure of an episode to record. Yeah, and it's amazing how good it feels to relieve ourselves from the pressures of pleasing others. And so that'll be some of what we're talking about here in this episode. Also, I'm experimenting with doing this one outside, out on the back porch deck area here at my folks in Jersey. So I'm anticipating a rich background soundscape. But I tested it, and I think I'm talking loud enough to where y'all can hear me. So hopefully that is the case. And also, you're welcome for a little taste of Jersey in late summer. And as I usually do, I think, I'll take a little time here to check in, and then I'll segue into the topic for this episode. And in this moment, I'm feeling pretty good. I actually just got off a video sharing about Earth School, which I'm super excited for, which will kick off this fall. Sunday, September 22nd is the opening ceremony, if you're interested. Yeah. But feeling, full after talking about Earth School, and also a client session earlier today. That was really amazing. So, very present, enjoying the breeze without the humidity. Feels like the first whispers of fall are coming. Although I still think it's way too early for anything pumpkin flavored. So, that's my feelings on that. And I will still shake my head if I see a Halloween store pop up. Because it's literally the first couple days of September. But I know some of y'all love that stuff, so I get it. Yeah, and I think today is the first day of school for a lot of folks. So if you're going back to school, have fun. Yeah, I'm just feeling pretty good. Feeling pretty flowy in the moment. There's not a whole lot of Drew baggage or Drew noise, which is nice because, 2 weeks ago, the last episode I recorded, I was definitely visiting Funky Town. And it's nice to be reminded of how this mysterious, miraculous life thing, it's always changing. And when things are funky, even if it feels like it's going to last forever, it won't. It can't. And so a lovely sunny day in the breeze, no humidity, whispers of fall. And feeling really full after the weekend too. It was essentially like the end of summer weekend. So my sister and her family were over here all day Saturday, all day Sunday, which means that I am delightfully tanned. And we were wrestling and playing games and all the shenanigans in the pool. Yeah, and I feel really grateful that I have an awareness and an appreciation for how golden this period of time in my life is. That I have the love and support of family, that I can come and visit for a couple months and spend time with my mom and my dad, and also get to experience like all three generations. Yeah, it's just a really beautiful moment in time. It gets me in my feels, and it's cool to recognize it while I'm in it. I feel like a lot of times we don't know the golden moments until later, right? Like we recognize later, like, oh yeah, that was it. But I know I'm in it now as I'm in it. So it's a beautiful thing. So that's where I'm at. Yeah. And I'm excited to share about people pleasing, because I think it's juicy and relatable. And and I have a wealth of experience. So, it's something that's near to my journey, or part of my journey for sure. Yeah, and I laughed when when I realized that it was people pleasing energy that had me scrambling to try to record the episode. And then I could just kind of let that go and enjoy myself with the family. But man, it's hard to do that, When we have years of experience living in a particular way, it's really hard to do something different. Like it literally feels physically wrong, to be more self-pleasing as opposed to people-pleasing. And as I was sitting with this topic, there were a couple different ideas or a couple different concepts that came through that feel all related. All different, but all related. So you got people-pleasing, and then self-abandonment is a term that shows up, which is also very much for me related to codependency, right? Being codependent. Then also the term self-sabotage, I think kind of sort of is related in here, or part of this bubble. And then also masking, which if you're not familiar with masking, for me, I was introduced to this idea or this kind of behavior through the neurodivergent bubble or world or sphere. And essentially masking is just trying to act normal or trying to hide or mask neurodivergent behaviors or tendencies, right? To try to be more neurotypical or try to fit in. Yeah. And it's most commonly used related to like folks with autism or folks somewhere on the autism spectrum. And so for me, yeah, like if I'm alone, I'm snapping and popping and carrying on with all sorts of shenanigans. But then if I'm in a social setting with other people, I mask all that, right? I hide that to try to show up more normal or acceptable. And yeah, I mean, it's cool to be normal sometimes, I guess, to fit in. You know, like there's certain social payoffs or social benefits, but masking or pretending or trying to be something other than what I really am, yeah, it's just I don't know, it gets exhausting, you know, like soul tired, kind of exhausting. And I think I would kind of take all of these concepts and put them in one bubble, and the term that comes through is that these are inauthentic behavior, or it's inauthentic participation in life, maybe. And no judgment, just identifying that when, you know, for me personally, if I'm people pleasing, then I'm probably abandoning myself. Or if I'm in some kind of unconscious, subconscious self-sabotage pattern, or if I'm masking either consciously or unconsciously, all of that is not my most honest expression, right? Like that's not true me, true Drew, or true whatever I am. And so, yeah, I just feel like if I'm showing up in any of those ways, it's definitely not authentic. And again, no judgment here. And I'm not the one who decides, you know, who's authentic or who's not. I just know for me, when I'm being inauthentic, yeah, like I said, soul tired, exhausting, and then there's a whole lot of other shenanigans and consequences that come with that. Versus when I'm able to show up more authentically as who and what I really am in each moment, you know, whatever's actually there. Yeah, there's just a different quality of experience that I prefer these days. I think I shared about it in one of the other episodes. Like, I would rather have my own acceptance than social acceptance these days. And so, you know, maybe I'm a little weird and don't get invited to all the parties, but I like hanging out with myself, so it's cool anyway. Yeah. And maybe I don't even want to go to your party. Yeah, I want to go to like an Earth School party. So, no, yeah, that feels good. And so I want to circle back and start with people pleasing and dig in a little bit more. Yeah, I think like people pleasing is the most relatable, or like the easiest idea or concept to connect with, maybe, for the widest range of folks. Right? You don't have to have a disorder or diagnosis or be on a spectrum or any of that to potentially have some people-pleasing behaviors. And just because we do some people-pleasing doesn't mean we're wrong or broken or disordered or anything like that, right? Like, people-pleasing definitely is a spectrum. And so you can please people none of the times, or some of the times, or all of the times. And I think, yeah, a certain amount of people pleasing, I mean, maybe that's the wrong word for just being able to compromise in relationships with other humans, right? Like, you have feelings, I have feelings. Let's be considerate. Let's be mindful of each other and, you know, not self-sacrificing, but aware and considerate. And then we both get pleased. You know, we both get our needs met. So I think that's, that's cool. And that's not necessarily terrible or bad. But for some of us, we engage in people-pleasing behaviors at our own expense, right? Like we're people-pleasing so often and to such a degree that it comes at the expense of our own needs getting met and our own happiness and our own sanity. And we can people-please ourselves right into a nice little hell, And I know quite a few folks who have built entire lives around people-pleasing. And then when they start to change behaviors, everybody around them, starts freaking out. It's like, wait, what are you doing? Why are you no longer pleasing me? So people-pleasing can be, it can be a problematic behavior. It can also become literally like an identity. You just are a people-pleaser. And I'm not big on, like taking things and making them part of your identity, right? Like I talk about depressive energy and anxious energy rather than having depression or having anxiety. And I think also here with people-pleasing, if we can talk about it as an energy or as a pattern of behavior, it's a different discussion than, oh, I am a people-pleaser. Once we take something and we make it part of who we think we are, there's a whole nother layer of like defenses that you gotta chew through to get some freedom. So, but yeah, maybe you do identify as a people pleaser, or maybe you can identify some of your behavior patterns as people pleasing. And maybe sometimes it's a little too much, other times it's perfectly okay for you. And I don't know what the right answers are, I'm not great in relationships with human beings, so I won't weigh in on that. But if we're making the needs of others more important than our own needs, to the degree that we are then suffering, I would definitely point at that and say, hey, what's going on here? What's this about? And so maybe you're doing some, a little bit of people pleasing or a lot of people pleasing. But what can happen if we're people pleasing a lot, right? Or if we really focus our energy on tending to everybody else's needs, is that we essentially abandon ourselves. And so the term self-abandonment for me, it's not something we do, it's more like something that happens as a result of how we're living or how we're participating in our lives. And you can think of it as, just taking care of a little kid or a pet, right? Like, if you don't pay any attention to the kid or the pet, if you don't meet any of their needs, if you don't give them any of your time or energy, right? You're essentially like abandoning them or neglecting them or whatever the term is. That's going to have a certain impact on that being, right? And for some of us, we actually grew up in environments where this happened, right, for us or to us. And then as a result, we now relate to ourselves in the same way. So maybe as a little nugget, somebody was more focused elsewhere on other relationships or work or, whatever. They had priorities that were other than your needs or well-being, right? Then potentially, right, that's neglect or abandonment, or you're not being tended to. And sometimes we internalize that, because that's the only thing we know. Just like if we learn English or Spanish, that's what we speak. If someone treats us in a certain way, we will model that behavior a lot of the time because it's the only thing we know, right? And so the way we're treated then becomes the way we treat ourselves. Also, I've seen this a lot, and especially in women, And then there's like a whole older child, older daughter kind of energy too, where essentially like your job and your identity and your importance comes from tending to the needs of others. And so that inevitably leads to an abandonment of yourself and your own needs. And for some folks, yeah, there is no identity other than the pleasing of others, right? Like that becomes the core of who you think you are. And that's no fun. You know, like kids that don't get attention get weird and do stuff to try to get attention. Animals that don't get attention or love or care, like act out and get feral, right? Like if we don't pay attention to ourselves, if we abandon ourselves because we're too busy focusing everywhere else, shit can get weird. You know, we can start to develop some behaviors and some acting out and some habit patterns that aren't necessarily great and definitely aren't a true honoring of who and what we really are. And a lot of this is also what shows up in relation to codependency. And yeah, really, codependency should get its whole own episode. And it probably will at some point. But with codependency, there's very much a focus elsewhere and an abandoning of self. And then a lot of pain and suffering as a result. And a variety of behavior patterns that show up that aren't necessarily fun. I'm going to pause and wait for the airplane to go by. Yeah, the Philadelphia International Airport isn't too far from here, so it's convenient when I'm bouncing around the world, but in this moment, it's a little loud. So, yeah. And for me, I'm a word nerd too, so I like to break stuff down. So if I'm looking at codependency, right, we're talking about a dependency that's co. So there's probably two involved in a dependency, and it tends to go both ways, right? So if you're dependent upon something, that's where your focus is, that's where your sense of worth is, that's where, you know, that's what you're about. You're dependent upon it, like any substance or any addiction. And then with co, it's like a two-way street. And so things get really ugly when there's two people that become dependent upon each other. And a lot of times that's what folks are showing up to a codependency flavored recovery process for, right? Some specific individual in their life where the relationship dynamic is not good for either one, or at least not good for the person who's showing up for the healing. And I strongly relate and identify as somebody who deals with codependency. And it actually took me a long time to discover it, because I fell into addiction to drugs and alcohol and gambling, and it took like 10 years of that recovery to then start to get in touch with the behavior patterns that were operating a little bit deeper. And then I started to be able to see the relationship dynamics in my family for multiple generations, and then also my immediate family. And it became much clearer that long before I got into the drugs and lost in addiction, I had been suffering as a result of participating in my life in a way that was very codependent and not fun. That made the drugs very appealing when I started taking them. So, all right. Pause a little there. And hopefully this is flowing. So people pleasing. Yeah, man, you know. It's nice when other people are happy. And also being a very sensitive person, right? An empath, if you will. I can feel what other people feel. So I want other people to feel good because then I feel good. And so there's definitely a self-interest in pleasing other people. sometimes I'll try to pretend like it's noble. I'll lie to myself, I'll lie to other people, try to act like, oh yeah, holier than thou, and look at me being of service and helping others. But very frequently, there's a seed or a giant core of my behavior that's driven by this codependency, this sensitivity to other people's feelings and wanting them to be happy so I can be happy. And and that's, again, exhausting. Like if my happiness depends on the happiness of the people around me, that's a full-time job. And then everybody else's feelings are my responsibility all the time. Yeah. Not fun. Not recommended. I spent at least 2, probably closer to 3 decades living like that and not even knowing it. Yeah. And it's a big part of why now my focus is much more authenticity, right? Like living your truth, living in alignment with what you know to be true, meeting your needs, right? Being conscious, being present, actively conscious in your life experience. Yeah. Because I'm emerging from being deeply unconscious, deeply other-oriented, right? Deeply codependent, living very inauthentic, constantly masking and pretending and pleasing other people, and in turn abandoning myself, neglecting myself, and then dealing with the consequences of it. All right. Yeah, the other thing that's coming through right now is speaking a little bit to self-sabotage. Because I think it's related, but I really don't like the term. Especially when people talk about sabotaging themselves. It's like, how often are people intentionally choosing to make their life harder? And I would say not a lot, actually. But what I do see a lot of is people unconsciously, unintentionally making their life harder and then pretending like they did it on purpose or they know why they did it. Right? Let that settle for a minute. Because self-sabotage is very much like an unconscious thing. If we're totally present, totally happy, totally aligned, right? Dang, with these planes. It's a busy day in Philly. If we're totally present, right? Totally happy, totally aligned, we're just going to do cool stuff because it's cool stuff. For some of us, we get in our own way and kind of sabotage things totally unconsciously because of our own baloney that we're not aware of. And and if you try to pretend like you know why you did the thing that you don't know why you did it, that's, you're not going to be getting help anytime soon. And I see that a lot too in folks. And I'm not as guilty as much anymore of trying to pretend like I know something when I clearly don't. Yeah, these days I just think I know stuff when I don't realize I don't know it. But back in the day, I used to not know stuff and then pretend I did all the time. And so that's what I see in a lot of folks who then deal with self-sabotage, or whatever you want to call this kind of like unconscious blind spot that folks trip over in their experience. Yeah, maybe that's a better way to articulate it. Also, and I've shared about this before too, like a lot of folks just have a certain emotional comfort zone. Like they're just more comfortable in a certain range of emotion. And so anything that would take them out of that range, even if it's in a cool way or a good way, unconsciously they might, how do you say it? You're in a comfort zone, and then an experience wants to pull you out of it. Yeah, there's going to be resistance to leaving the comfort zone. And then that's when we might do something that could be considered self-sabotage, right? Because it's not really sabotaging, it's more bringing you back to where you're comfortable. But yeah, when you do something like that, then it tends to get judged. And I'm not a huge fan of judgment because I mean, I'm naturally judgmental and it never helps. You know, and I see it in folks over and over again. Like when you're in judgment energy, you're not learning anything new and you're not moving into any new kind of space. You know, you're getting stuck with what you think you know. And so, yeah, I feel like when folks self-sabotage, they're really just trying to stay where they know. You know, it's kind of letting fear win on an unconscious level. But anywho, it felt related, and it feels like, yeah, it's not authentic to sabotage your own success or your own experience, but it's layered, it's thicker. I just don't like the term. I don't like any way of understanding ourselves that puts us at opposition with ourselves. Yeah, we'll say it like that. So anytime there's a term or a concept that kind of refers to us being at war with ourselves or in opposition or like harming ourselves, yeah, I immediately want to pause and take a closer look at that to see what's really going on. Because really, self-sabotage is some part of you trying to keep you in a safer space, emotionally or, you know, whatever. So that's actually a protective mechanism that's working on behalf of your safety and comfort zone. It's just potentially not in alignment with, you know, where you think you want to go or some goal that you're trying to get towards. And so a lot of the work that I'll do with folks is just helping them see both parts and then bring it all together into one cohesive whole. All right. Let me do a time check here. All right, cool. So I think I rambled and I bambled through a bunch of cool stuff here. People pleasing, definitely guilty of that. Multiple decades. And I'm more aware of what it feels like and what it smells like now. So like even with this podcast recording experience, right? Like I was going in a direction of people pleasing. Like that energy was guiding my participation. But because I've done a little bit of work, there was an awareness of it. I kind of like smelled that pressure or felt that pressure. And I'm like, ooh, hold on. I know what this is. Let's take a deep breath. And actually, I don't have to do a podcast episode. And I can wait till next week. And so I'm super grateful for the time invested and the folks that have helped, you know, teach me and guide me into this awareness to then be able to actually utilize it or for it to actually show up in my moment-to-moment experience. So, yeah, having a little bit more awareness these days, but still definitely susceptible to falling into codependent, other-centered, self-abandonment type movements and paying the consequences, you know? Like feeling crappy when I have not tended to my own needs for a couple hours or a couple days. Or when I put myself in a dicey position because I prioritize somebody else's stuff ahead of mine. Yeah, very much in that process. But with a whole lot more awareness, which means I just get to make different mistakes and learn new lessons. But that's growth, man. You know, if we're making new mistakes and doing new dumb stuff, then then we're growing. We're moving in a cool direction. If we're just doing the same dumb stuff over and over again, we ain't learning nothing. We're just, I guess, repeating stuff until we're tired of it. So grateful for the awareness. Grateful to be in a process and a journey of learning about myself and being able to take what I learn and put it into action and practice in my life, moment to moment, in situations. Because sometimes that's a hard jump or leap to make from conceptual knowing to practical application. But super grateful for where I'm at in the journey today. And the amount of knuckleheaded shenanigans I no longer need to indulge in. Yeah. And I don't know. Maybe I still self-sabotage in some ways. But again, I hate that like concept or that thought structure. Instead, I would say, are there still some fears that make me pull back into a protective mode or a safe zone? Yeah, sure, absolutely. And am I aware of when those fears are kind of sneaking in? Nope, not all the time. But more often, there's more awareness, there's more compassion, there's more acceptance, which allows for more authenticity and the freedom that comes with it. And so for that, yeah, super grateful. And all the shenanigans and lessons have been worth every ounce of pain. And also, yeah, the masking concept. I really love it. And I've come to embrace, I definitely think different, right? I'm neurodivergent than most of the normies and the muggles that I engage with. And I used to judge myself for it. And people used to judge me for it. And people still judge me for it. But I don't really spend as much time in the judgment these days. There's much more of an appreciation for the diversity, for the difference, and then what it makes possible. Right? Like, as a result of me being able to think different, or me just thinking differently, I provide really cool perspectives for folks who might not otherwise be able to see things from a certain point of view. And that's a really cool journey too, to go from like outcast, different, weird, to recognizing and honoring the beauty of diversity and being different. Yeah. I mean, not to say that I'm, I embrace all my weirdness all the time, but there's a lot more love for all of whoever this is. That's for sure. And I also love when I get weird, how it like polarizes people, right? Like either people get weird about me being weird, which I find entertaining, or some people get comfortable because I'm being weird, and then they can also be weird, and then that's really fun. So it's kind of like a win-win. And this is a nice realization in this moment. I just need to be weird more often, man. Or just myself. Even weird is a little bit of a judgment. But the more that I am, whatever it is that I am, which is constantly changing, but the more I just allow for the experience to be as it is, and whoever this is, whoever I am, to show up as it is, that's where the juice is. That's the flow, that's the freedom, that's the ease and the peace. And there's also a depth of, just like joy and gratitude and appreciation and fun there. So that would be highly recommended. And if you know about it, then you know about it. All right, cool. I think this might be the conclusion. And again, I'm not trying to be the end-all be-all on these topics, but I thought it would be cool to speak to some of this and offer some of my own experience and insights, and potentially allow folks to relate and connect. And as always, feel free to reach out if there's a follow-up conversation to have, or come hang out in one of the groups this fall in Earth School, and we can get weird together. Yeah. And I think aside from the couple planes, we did good with the outside recording. So, feeling good, feeling full, also feeling hungry, which means it's time to wrap this up. As always, be gentle with yourself. It's a crazy trip, this life thing. Squeezing 1,000,000 pounds of infinite everything into a tiny little cluster of bones and flesh that is so limited and so finite. Yeah. It's hard to be this. But it's also really beautiful and really, really cool when we can come together and recognize it together. You know? So, I wish you many moments of authentic expression and connection this coming week. And a lot of peace and ease and acceptance and being exactly as you are. And knowing that you don't have to please anybody else. I mean, don't be a selfish jerk, but, you know, like, other people can deal with their feelings and their stuff. And you can have space for you. All right. Love y'all. And I will see you a little further down the road.